YouTube, welcome back to the channel, and on today's episode we are going to be going over the topic of break free from everyday limits. I'll say it again, break free from everyday limits, the limits that we place on ourselves on a daily basis. I can't do this. This is impossible. This is going to take way too much time. I'm not qualified. All of these internal limits that we put on ourselves. Society may not even be placing those limits on us, and we put them on ourselves. In this video, I'm going to be going over ways to get over those limits, how to break free, and how to reach your true potential. Most people think their limits are real, but what if I told you they're nothing more than a habit? Your limits are your habits. The limits you place on yourself are because of your habits. If you've ever felt stuck, no matter what you do, you keep hitting the same walls, you're not alone. By the end of this, you're going to see your limits in a way you've never before, and more importantly, how to break past them. Alright, point number 1, the hidden trap of everyday limits. Most people assume their limits are set by their abilities or circumstances, but that's exactly why they stay stuck. I'm going to put the script down right now and just go more one-on-one with you. Alright? I think it's important to first start off with, why do we even place these limits on ourselves to begin with? Is it the fear of us not succeeding to begin with? Is it the fear that we may be leaving our own comfort zone? Is it the fear that we're afraid of our own success? Why do we place these limits on ourselves? Right off the bat, I think the biggest reason that we place these limits on ourselves is we take a look at where we currently are and where we currently aspire to be, and we realize how far it is or how much effort it may take to get there. Where we currently are may be comfortable, and to leave where we currently are, our state of comfort, to go after what it is we want, takes a lot of work. It may be work that one may not want to do. It may completely change their life. When I was going to school, I never really tried. During my sophomore year of high school was the last time I'd probably say I tried. And because I actually tried, I got somewhat close to a 4.0 GPA. Maybe I did hit a 4.0 GPA, but just for safety measures, let's say I got close to a 4.0 GPA my sophomore year of high school. But when I did that, number 1, it told me that I could do it, that it was possible for me. But number 2, it showed me that I did all of this work for a letter grade, and I would have to do it again the year after that and the year after that. And granted, I was only a sophomore in high school, so my mindset wasn't as developed as it is now, but realizing that it made me question, why was I trying so hard in school if I was just going to have to do it again the year after that, and then again the year after that, and again in college the year after that. And during my sophomore year, after completing my sophomore year and getting close to a 4.0 GPA, I really questioned myself, if I put in a lot of my efforts and I actually tried, I could accomplish something. Now, what that was where I fell off, because in the following years, I never really tried in school anymore because I felt like it wasn't worth my time. Looking back at it, I would probably tell myself something different, but that was my thinking in the moment during that time of my life. And then when I went to college, it was the same mindset, but actually a little bit worse, because let's say in high school, in my junior and senior year, I was more focused on getting B's, low A's, for example. And then once college came, I was just, as long as I passed, I'm good. And the reason I wanted to bring up this story in terms of how to break free from the limits you place on yourself was because, yes, during my sophomore year, when I got close to a 4.0 GPA, I realized that if I put all my time and effort into something, then I would be able to accomplish it. But where I made a mistake, or the fault that I made looking back at it, was I didn't necessarily apply that to other aspects of my life. So in school, I saw it as like a chore, right? I got high grades one year, and then the rest, I was like, you know what, this isn't even worth my time anymore. A mistake I made was I didn't look for other avenues to challenge myself, to push myself, whether it be through extracurriculars, or through sports, or through thinking about a career path, or a way to make a living that would help me in the future. There are a lot of young creators nowadays who felt like school wasn't for them, but what they did, rather than just slacking off, was they harnessed all of their mental fortitude a lot of their energy towards something they were very passionate about, whether it be through sports, whether it be through media, social media, whether it be through different things. And they really allowed time in their favor to have their efforts and skills compound. Because I was young, I didn't do those things because I felt like there was a limit for myself. I always tell the story about how I always wanted to try for the basketball team, and I didn't because I saw who else was trying out, their background, their experiences, and I only made it to the first day of conditioning. And on the first day of conditioning, I quit because I saw how hard it was, and I put a limit on myself. So in school, my sophomore year of high school, when I got close to a 4.0 GPA, I saw it as too easy, so I stopped really focusing the years after that. But then when it came to sports, something that I've always wanted to do, I quit because I put a limit on myself. So reflecting on that situation, I was somewhat good at school when I tried, but because I didn't really see a point in doing it, I stopped trying. And when there was something I actually wanted to do, like sports, for example, I didn't do it because I saw the competition and how good everyone was, and I quit and I put a limit on myself. So that's kind of the habit that I've kind of developed throughout the years. And when it came to like pursuing a career or pursuing a degree, for example, I put a limit on myself because I didn't really have that many connections. My grades weren't that good. And that's kind of going back to why I wish I just stuck with doing good in school. I didn't take college that seriously. I didn't think about my college plan, how it was going to affect how I applied to jobs in the future. I didn't necessarily take into consideration the type of degree I wanted to pursue. I didn't take into consideration how college could be used as leverage to get a job. And of course, in hindsight right now, it makes a lot of sense because of a lot of the experiences you gain as you mature. But during that age, when I was in high school, I simply saw college as a way to leave the house, party, be on your own, make mistakes. That's essentially how I saw college. I never really saw college as a way to get internships or a way to join clubs or a way to learn more about certain career paths that you may be interested in the future. And when I was in college, I never really did internships. My whole mindset was, once I graduate, that's when I'm going to start. I never really applied to the high-end companies because I always felt like the school I went to wasn't that high of a caliber. So I put that limit on myself. And throughout the years, I've kind of just put this limit on myself about what I could accomplish because of my background. The habits that I developed throughout those years really put me in a shell. I'm slowly starting to realize now that as you mature, the world is essentially your oyster. It may not be as smooth as it could be if you were to start planning things out earlier. The world isn't always fair, and it's going to favor certain credentials and criteria over someone who may not have the most top qualifications, but that doesn't mean that it's over for you. I'm slowly starting to develop a mindset where there are less limitations on me, and the more limitations that I feel like I have are simply placed there because I put them on myself. So here's what you can do right now. Start questioning the rules you've been following without realizing it. You gotta question them, man. You gotta question, why do you feel like you're limited in a certain situation? What can you do to push past the limitations that you see for yourself in order to create the life that you actually want for yourself? All right, point number 2, the mental barriers you don't see. You've probably been told to believe in yourself, but let me show you why that's not enough. Imagine an elephant tied to a tiny rope. It could break free at any moment, but it doesn't, because it believes it can't. Every time I hear a saying like that, where it's an elephant tied to a rope, and it doesn't know that it could break free simply if it wanted to, but it stays constrained simply because of the fact there's a rope tied around its neck. But it has the force to escape it, but it just doesn't. It kind of points me in the direction of entrepreneurship. The whole feeling of you have the skills necessary to achieve what it is you want. What is actually holding you back? For those of you that have always wanted to start a business, could it be that you've built a reputation in your career already where it's difficult for you to leave because of how much you're getting paid or how much expense you may have? And are you willing to make that sacrifice in whatever stage you are in your career? It's, do you pursue entrepreneurship or do you continue climbing the ladder? And I see both sides of the story. If I was in a high position working for a company, I don't think I would leave for entrepreneurship because of how well I was compensated, how I've already built my reputation. But if my end goal was to become wealthy, I would come to realize that there are only so many hours in a day. And that in order for you to become wealthy, you have to leverage some form of leverage, right? You have to leverage in order to maximize the time that you have. And I see the best way to do that is through entrepreneurship. Because let's say you work 8 hours, 12 hours, you only get paid a certain rate for that amount. And your time is limited based on whether you can work, whether you perform, all of these things, right? Whereas if you were to start your own business, you have that leverage of you can create media like videos, or you can utilize code for apps or projects that will continuously work even when you're not working, when you're sleeping. But of course there are trade-offs, right? You have the stability of a job, but then you also have the uncertainty of a business. But then again, I relate everything back to the elephant analogy on the road. If you feel like you have the ability to fly, you have the ability to make it on your own, then by all means, go for it. I always hear people, especially later on in their life, they're like, I wish I started a business earlier, or no matter how high you succeed in your corporate job, for example, you're always just going to be a cog in the wheel, which I understand. I think you have to have that awareness and when it comes to making these type of decisions. But of course, there are also benefits to both, right? If you work at a corporate job, you have your stock options, which are great, your RSUs, if you plan it out wisely, or if you're part of a startup and you build that reputation. But if you start your own business, you have more control. So there are more pros and cons. I would just say assessed on what it is that speaks to you the most. What if your biggest limit isn't real? Just a belief you've repeated so many times it feels real. That's pretty good, actually. What if your biggest limit isn't real? Just a belief you've repeated so many times it feels real. Wow. Your subconscious really does take into consideration all the things you tell yourself. Whether you speak positively to your subconscious or you speak negatively, it's not going to know the difference. Here's how you can break that. The next time you hear yourself say, I can't, replace it with, how can I? It's all about how you speak to yourself. If you're telling yourself, oh, I can't leave my corporate job because of how well I'm compensated or how secure it is, ask yourself, how could it be working your job in the day and then working a side business at night? I feel like if it's something that you really want, you're going to find a way to do it. And all that accountability is up to you. All right, point number 3, the shift that changes everything. Think about the last time you backed away from something challenging. What if I told you fear isn't a stop sign, it's a signal? Fear. Aside from a basketball story where I didn't try out because I saw all the competition and how well they were already, and compared them to me, who was still new, which is why I quit on the first day without even trying out, I'd probably say that a more relevant fear that I may have is when it comes to applying to jobs, right? I mentioned my backstory of how I didn't have the best grades, I didn't go to the best school, and there are certain companies that may prefer that. There are certain jobs that may look at your background. My job history isn't the best. I haven't worked for big name companies. I haven't done all of the, let's say for example, required skills needed for the job. So I may feel fear or hesitant to apply because in the back of my head, I may be telling myself I'm not qualified. There are other candidates better than me. So if you're going through the same thing, I probably challenge you to ask yourself, why do you feel this way? Could it be that you have not yet developed the skills? If it's a skills issue, are there ways for you to gain those skills on your own free time? If it's a background issue, or if it's a schooling issue, I didn't go to the best school, is there people in your network that may already work for that company that you could reach out to? Or can you build a connection with someone who already works there? That despite the school, maybe you could leverage the fact that you have a relationship over the school that you went to. So my thinking is that a lot of the limits that you place on yourself are simply placed on yourself by you. And you have the ability to decide, are my limits going to hold me back, or are my limits going to push me forward? Are the fears that I have, are the indicators that I need to quit, or are the indicators that they're the next path or the next challenge I need to tackle in order to move forward? Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. It's all about perspective. Once you realize that every major breakthrough starts at the edge of discomfort, you stop avoiding it and start using it. I'm starting to notice a common theme of comfort versus discomfort, and that in order for you to grow, you have to embrace discomfort. And it's challenging, especially if you live a very comfortable life. But I think sometimes you have to strategically use discomfort in order to help you grow. Because I think if you live a comfortable life, time's gonna pass by you and you're not even gonna realize it. You're so succumbed to the comfort of the life you currently live that it's difficult for you to grow. And I would even challenge that to say that this applies to everyone at whatever stage of life that they are. Don't get comfortable. You could be the wealthiest of the wealthy, but if you don't stay up to date, if you don't upskill yourself, if you don't make more connections, then who's to say that knock on wood, something doesn't happen and you lose all your fortune, or someone who's more hungry than you overtakes you at the top. So everything relies on your ability to handle discomfort and how you choose to react to it. Try this today. Do one thing that makes you uncomfortable, something small. The goal isn't to win. It's to prove that your limits aren't as solid as they seem. All right, point number 4, the simple habit that breaks any limit. Here's why most people never break free. They wait until they feel ready, but ready is a myth. Once you start acting before you feel ready, your world expands because you stop waiting and start moving. I remember when I first started working in sales, I used to always just in my head internalize everything that could go wrong. My heart used to beat so fast. I used to doubt myself. Am I ready? Do I know what this person's going to say? Do I have the right information to give this person to help them make a decision? But as I've developed, as time passed, when I approach sales, I just act. And then whatever happens, I'll know what to do. In other words, it's rather than feeling like you have to know everything prior to talking to someone, especially in sales, it's taking the first action, taking the first step, and knowing that the first time may not be perfect, but after repetition, through time, through the skills you gain, you're going to learn to master your craft, whether it be through sales or speaking or networking. You're never going to feel perfect. I'd imagine that even the best speakers, they still get nervous. Even no matter how many times they've done it, they still feel nervous. So, once you start acting before you feel ready, your world expands because you stop waiting and start moving. That is very true. And I also feel like it helps you get through the iterations faster. The more you act, the more you fail. And the more you fail, the more you learn. But the more you're hesitant, the less likely you are to fail, right? And the less likely you are to fail, the less likely you are to learn. So you're just stuck in that comfort zone of where you're not really going anywhere, but you're not growing. So is comfort a worthy enough price in compensation for growth? Are you willing to sacrifice growth for comfort? Or are you willing to sacrifice comfort for growth? All right. Are you willing to do what most people won't? If so, prove it. Pick one limit you've accepted for too long and break it today. All right. In conclusion, if there's one thing you take away from this, let it be this. You're until you accept them. Your limits aren't real unless you accept them. I think the world is cold enough as it already is. There is so much negativity in the world already, telling you bad things, that you can't do this, giving you negative aura. But I think the strongest, the people that succeed, they have a strong belief in themselves that no matter what comes, they have the ability to overcome the challenges. Your inner strength has to be stronger. Your belief in yourself has to be stronger than any external negativity that you may face. The limits that you place on yourself aren't real unless you accept them. You feel like you can't lose weight, you feel like you can't get that job, you feel like you can't talk to that girl, then you're right. But if you feel like you can lose weight, you feel like you can get that job, you feel like you can talk to that girl, then you're right. Belief starts with you. No one can give you that belief but you. The biggest way to break free from the limit that you place on yourself is to take action. Action triumphs all. The more action you take, the more times you fail, the more times you learn, the more times you build confidence in yourself, your skills, and your abilities, and your ability to stay consistent and persistent even when times get tough. And those mental reps that you go through, they're going to build your character. And your character is what triumphs all negative beliefs and limits that you place on yourself. With that being said, if you made it this far to the video, I thank you. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.